So I'm recording. So take it away.
I can demo first so that we're Matthew, so we're friends each other.
Sounds good.
Hey, there she is.
Yes.
Hey, like,
Oh yeah, I put a note in there that I literally just walked in the door. So
oh, okay, no worries.
very good.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Hi everyone. This week we were tasked with sorting the list by date of next estimated purchase. And then there was an additional sort that had to be done in each list for if the purchase dates were the same, then it should be sorted alphabetically. So we got that to work. It's kind of hard to test because of how the formulas for like the dates are set up, and we don't have all day to sit here and wait. So we set it to 5 seconds for testing. But if you see under buy soon, E is coming before D, and that's because of E's estimated next purchase date is sooner than D's. Oh, that might be my sweater. Can you hear me now?
I think it was your sweater.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So if I click on E, let's see if it changes. I actually should have clicked on D. No. Okay, so yep, it just switched. So now D is before E. And yeah, that's just because the estimated purchase date is now sooner because of how we set up the calculations in the last tickets. The other acceptance criteria is that it has to be distinctly identified, which we did. It's not the prettiest, but it's there. And the last one we were having some trouble with, and we wanted some feedback. We have a screen reader. So the screen reader works.
Buy soon. Bananas X.
However, we were just confused about how we can make it, if I click on bananas, how we can make the screen reader identify that it's in the buy soon list. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is help with refactoring. Can you guys see the code?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, and Rachel and I talked about pulling this out into its own component, but essentially every single list has the same thing in it. There's the filter from before when we had the filter function, and then we sorted using a comparison, and I can show you that chunk. All the comparison method does is returns a number, either positive or negative, and depending on the number, it sorts it. This one is set by purchase date, so it will sort the purchase date from soonest to latest. Yes, soonest to latest. And then if the purchase date is the same, then the regular sort will just sort it alphabetically. So that kind of checked off that criteria. And then each sort has a map chain to it, and this is all the same. This is where we validated which list it should go into by just checking the purchase date or the frequency, because we realized the new products don't have a frequency. So, don't have a purchase date. So if you check something, you say you want to buy it soon, it should go into the buy soon list and not inactive, which is where it was going in the beginning. And then just outputting. And that's really it. Yeah, we just called them all down here. So any tips on refactoring would be great too, because it's a lot of code that does the same thing over and over.
Once we go into your pull request, I'd be happy to give you some direction. Okay. I think that all your gut instincts about everything you said with opportunities to refactor are right. So that's really good that you're calling those out.
But yeah.
As far as the screen reader stuff goes,
Mhm.
I don't think it needs to say like buy soon when it's in a specific, what am I trying to say? Like when it's in avocados and buy soon, it doesn't necessarily need to say buy soon. What I
Oh.
would be concerned about with the screen reader is that it says like avocados X, and like it's super unclear what X is. And
Yeah.
I would try and get some like labeling there or something to make it clear that that is delete this item.
Do you think it'd be better? This is the X. This is our delete button. Do you think it'd be better if we used an image with alt text instead of just an X?
I don't think so. I would just look into accessible buttons. I think that there's some stuff with HTML that you can do. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but
ARIA label or ARIA.
Yeah.
I don't know if
there's-
it would have to be an ARIA label though. It might just also be like a regular label. I'm not completely
Oh
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, so let's look into like labels for buttons and stuff. I think that would help.
Okay. But that's all we have.
It's beautiful. Awesome. I noticed that locally. Am I right in saying that you changed the timeout from a day to a few
5.
seconds just so you can test it?
Yeah, it's at 5. So this will go back to hours 24, and then that button will stay active for hours 24.
There's something interesting that we should look into is you can set environment variables. So when you're running it locally, a value can be one thing, and then when you deploy it to the production instance, it can be something else. And then you won't have to toggle that, and you can go into the environment variable and just set it there. So you don't have, sometimes like I do that a lot where I'll just toggle a value to something else and then I'll commit it and push it up and be like, oh, wait, you know. So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Very nice.
Share.
Haley, did you have a preference for demoing? Or
I think since you got, if you don't mind going, because you got the last part, and then I didn't have time to look at the PR. I know, Michael, you mentioned
sure, that's fine.
some. I like the screenshots. That's me. Screenshots in the PR.
Thanks. All right. So this
Picture
should
is
just
worth
be
1,000 words.
browser. Yeah. I try to do that where I can. All right, so let's see if I can remember the token off the top of my head. Cool. All right. So basically our task was creating a way to display the purchase details. So I think it was the name, number of purchases, last purchase date, and then number of days until the next purchase. So we decided to do this as a modal. So we put the little view details button next to each item, and this can be restyled in the next week or two, whenever that particular issue will address it. And so when you click that button, it'll bring up the details for each one. So that's for avocados, and then you got mangoes and walnuts. And so at a minimum, it's going to display the name and number of purchases. And then at the maximum, it's going to display the date purchased and the days until the next purchase. So when you buy it once, it'll get a date purchased, but then I think it takes until the next purchase to be able to then start running the calculations, because it has to determine the last date, the new date, and things like that. So it needs a couple of times until it'll populate this next piece of it. And so I might need to switch my share here. And so as for the code, I don't have this part open yet, so 1 second. All right, so we did create 2 new states. So we created this line here on 17, which toggles the modal off and on. And then we created the initialized state for the modal, because when it loads, it needs something or else it'll error out. So we had to put these into the initialized state. And then we also brought in the modal that, I forget, Rachel and Haley, I think, created in their last issue. And then I created a little helper function for some seconds to date conversion that also shows. And let's see, let me put this down here. Sorry, I'm trying to find where it was. Right here. So this is our function that closes it. This opens it while also setting the item into the state. So then you can pull it down in this next function, or like not really a function, but in this next variable here, which stores the modal and all the details. So basically when you click that button down here, it's going to put the item into that function, which then gets stored into state. So then when the modal opens, it then pulls that down so you can get each one of these. And so these couple conditionals here determine if it's to show those two extra detail lines or not. And then this is the function that I created with a little help from Stack Overflow. So it creates the new date, and then it kind of gets, it sets the seconds from the seconds that come in. So these seconds are what it's actually returning from the data, and then it converts it into a date. And then when you go into that part, then I tacked on that to local date string, which we could change. It just looked fine to me, that date format for now. But yeah, that's pretty much everything with that one.
Awesome. I started looking at the PR. I'll finish looking at that after this call. I think I saw something in there that may have, I think it just reminded me of a previous PR, and that's why I thought that there might have been like a bad merge or bad rebase. But
no, I think it brought
so.
in the way I merged master into it before I deployed it, which I've never had a problem with before, as long as all the other stuff was in the master. It usually doesn't show. But it seemed like it was carrying over some of the previous PR or previous issue, the delete stuff. So I'm not sure why that was in there, but yeah, I mentioned that in the notes just because I didn't know how to take it out.
That's fair. Git can be hard to wrangle sometime.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Very, very awesome job on your tickets for the week. So I want to transition now into doing our retro. So let me share with you the retro link. There it is. And so I want to talk about just a slight tweak. So last time we did a retro, if you remember, I was a little late to the meeting, and I felt like I was rushing through it. And part of that rushing through, I feel like I wasn't letting the cards breathe and letting us discuss over those. And I think I was reading them over myself. But this time I want all of you to drive it instead of me reading the cards. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen after we create the, or I guess as we're adding them. And then I'll let all of you read your own tickets, and I think we'll vote on for the what we can improve. I'll let us vote on those, and then you'll get. Andrew, what do you think? Just like one vote apiece? Keep it simple.
Yeah, because we probably I mean it'd be good just to end up with sort of one thing that we maybe focus on for the coming 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's really straightforward to talk about the appreciations and what went well. Generally, there's no argument there, or I guess there's no discussion. It's just, hey, we did it, good job. But then usually the what we should improve has some discussion around it. So the reason why I want us to vote on those is so that we can have a meaningful discussion about one thing rather than just plow through all of them and then not have enough time to have meaningful discussion. So anyways, let me share my screen and take 3 minutes So 424 or 124, we'll start talking. So only requirement is just make sure you put one appreciation there. I want everyone to talk about what they appreciated this last 2 weeks. So, all right. Do your thing. All right, finish up whatever card that you may be typing, and we'll get started here discussing them in just a second. All right, so Andrew, the order that you put in chat, we should just have each person for each column read through their card and discuss those.
Yeah, so yeah, we can maybe rearrange the cards so they're in order by the order that's in the chat. And then we'll just go like one column at a time, like go through all the appreciations, and we all go to the next column and go through what went well, right? And then through the third column.
Okay. So the order here is in chat. We'll go through appreciations first. So Jayla, I'm always bad at remembering everyone's GitHub.
That's me.
Okay, yeah, you have that one at the top there.
Yeah. Just a thank you to Matt and Rachel for this week and the last week for working with my schedule. I told them both I started a new project at work and my commute is now 2 hours each way. I'm not getting home until super late, like 8 o'clock or later. And they both have been like really flexible with working with me. Sometimes I'm like online until 10 something. So yeah, thank you for that.
Nice. Next, so thanks, Radhika, for running the accessibility session last week. You did a really nice job with that. That was cool. And then, yeah, it's just everybody. It's like you really feel like you're kind of coming together as a team. You're kind of like working like a seasoned team that's been working together forever. So it's really fun to see. So, yeah, thanks for everything you're doing, all the effort.
All right, Rachel.
Let's see, what's it? Or is it mine? Now after Andrew? Card wise. Yeah. Are we going by the chat version or
the
card?
Order there in chat? Yeah, you're after Andrew.
Okay. Wait, was it moved again?
You're the fourth card there, I think.
Under appreciations. Well, either way. Let me find. Oh, now I'm last. Either way, I'll just go on mine and we can do it. The last 2 weeks has been a little bit less stressful due to getting kind of started, having a deadline on Tuesday. So thanks to Rachel and Matthew for you picked a day to have a deadline, either start here or otherwise, and also being flexible with schedules because mine has moved around a lot as well.
Okay, so
all right.
Am I supposed to go now or?
Yeah, we went out of order. It's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Rachel, you can go.
Okay, cool. I just really appreciate how patient Jayla was. I was really tired this week, and she was also really flexible with me being tired and wanting to switch stuff around. So thanks, Jayla.
Okay,
Radhika.
now it's me, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give a shout out to Matthew and Jayla for tackling the 2 issues this week really seamlessly. I know it was extra work, but now we are back on track, and I'm really happy to see it.
Nice. So I wanted to give a shout out to all 4 of the. Is Collab the word to use? I feel like that is like all encompassing mentors and mentees. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the mentees that I really see the growth week to week, especially since our last retro. Y'all are doing things that I think people are sharing feedback with each other over the weeks, and I'm seeing the little things like improved PR descriptions. I think that's such a huge one. I think the readability of your code is improving in an organization, and so I'm really appreciating that, seeing all the growth and all the how everyone's receiving feedback well. I think that's really important. Matthew, you're up.
Next, yeah. Yeah, I'm just wanted to touch on flexibility and like again, just as a couple other people did. I've just noticed like how busy everyone is, and I just really appreciate everyone still finding the time and not just kind of like treating this like something that's not as important. Like everyone's still showing up and working hard, and yeah, I just really appreciate that consistency, and I think it's really cool.
Awesome. All right, so we'll go through the what went well cards, and if you don't have one, that's totally fine. We'll just you'll just pass. So we'll do the same order there. Jayla.
Okay, so I said that navigating the ACs for both tickets in the last 2 weeks with each of my partners went pretty well. I think that these last 2 weeks were a bit harder than the tickets before. Matthew and I were kind of hazy about what was being asked at first, and Rachel and we like knocked out the first part and then we realized how much more work we had. So really just kind of buckling down and getting through each AC was really great. And everyone, like both of them came up with like really good ideas, lots of bouncing back and forth and trying different things. So I appreciated that.
All right, Andrew.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, just over the last 2 weeks, it really like there's been so much progress in the app itself. So that's I think that everyone's working hard and like getting the right things done. And I think the other thing that I've noticed kind of in the channel is just like really, I mean, it's kind of been brought up already, but really good just communication in the channel. A lot of just like kind of questions and coordination going on and that kind of thing. It's like, it makes it easy, for me, who's kind of like dipping in and out of the channel, just kind of like get a read on, how it's going. So good job. Keep that up. Really good. Good to see it.
Rachel, you're up next.
Okay, this last week's task was a total beast, and I wasn't sure how we were going to get it all done. And but we got really close, except for that last piece, and so I think that was amazing. I think that Jayla and I worked together really well.
Good to hear. Radhika, you're up next.
I think just in general, like the improvement over time has been really brilliant to see. I feel like every week the PRs get better and better in code quality and description, and the communication, even as things get tougher and tougher, has continued to stay up to par. So like, good job to everyone.
I don't have one on this column, so we'll go to Matthew.
Okay. Yeah, similar to I think what Jayla and Rachel both said. It definitely did feel like it ramped up the last 2 weeks in terms of difficulty. So I think what went well is just fighting through that and not getting too discouraged. And last week, not being able to get our issue done on time, I think that didn't really affect us too much. We were still like, all right, well, we'll just tackle it Monday. And so just kind of fighting through those. And I know me and Haley had a really long day on Wednesday. We were both so burnt out, but still like being able to get the issue done. So that was really cool. Yeah.
I wanted to tie with kind of an appreciation as well. And what Jayla was saying is, well, the last 2 weeks, it feels like they were kind of two-parter issues that I was part of. So like, okay, we know how to do the first part, and the second part should be easy. And then it was always should be easy. And usually that got a little bit longer, but both Rachel and Matthew, if we didn't finish on the second part of the call, then they'd kind of go in and say, hold on, I want to figure this out. So I know Matthew said something about being stubborn about it, which I get, and glad to show like what went on, because like we know it's there, but didn't want to have to schedule another call because of schedules and everything.
All right, so we'll go through the what can we improve column now. Just a time check. We're at 1:34. So I want to make sure that we have about 15 minutes to discuss our tickets before the end of the call. So just keeping that in mind. So the first one here is from Jayla.
So mine says asking clarifying questions sooner. And this kind of ties into what went well. I feel like the initial run, like pass at the ACs, it was just very confusing what was being asked, and also how can we solve it, and asking questions to the mentors before Sunday, before Friday, honestly, would have put us in a better position. I know that last week, Matthew and I mentioned about how we didn't quite understand the estimate formula that was provided and what it was doing. So just, it would have been better if we would have said, hey, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's great insight, actually. I mean, well, I guess we'll discuss later, maybe. Anyway, I would love to see if we can set a goal for this coming week to try to get everything merged in by the time of the call, and then actually just do our demos on the production yard. That's kind of like on most software teams, you don't really demo unless it's shipped, You know, like it's not kind of real until it's in production. So I think, you know, it's like things happen, whatever, but maybe we can try to make that a little stretch goal for this coming week. So that might mean that we have to walk back a little bit earlier some of the other things that we do in terms of getting the work done, getting the reviews in, getting the mentor approval, all that stuff, and having time to react to the feedback. So we can do the merge maybe Sunday morning or something and kind of hit the meeting with everything running in production. I'd love to see that. I mean, it's up to the group whether that's kind of the goal they want to set, but yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, it looks like these next tasks are just styling, right?
Yeah.
So that seems absolutely doable.
Yeah.
Just making
And
sense.
yeah, we'll discuss these. I want to get the other two from the last column here, and then we'll pick which one we want to discuss. All right, Radhika.
Let's see, where is mine?
The
I mean,
third one there.
basically what's already been said. Get mentors involved earlier on. Ask those clarifying questions earlier. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah. I didn't add one myself because I was just going to +1 that one. And then we have one last one from Haley.
Yep. To continue, Stacy had that thread chat from yesterday for how to schedule or best way to do it. So I'd like to further discuss that one, but at least for, as well with Andrew, your kind of goal for this week is to get everything done by Sunday. So I think having that deadline of at least Tuesday, you can have your research and kind of be prepared to either pair on that day or Wednesday. Usually you're able to get pretty close to pushing everything by Sunday.
All right, so in chat, I think that there's a lot of good discussion we can have around these, but since we'll have like about 8 minutes here, let's in chat just vote for the card that you want to discuss. So you can just put like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then the one with the most votes will just we'll have a discussion around that. So I'm gonna put mine. Yeah, just go ahead and type it in the chat. Is that everyone? I think it is. Looks like 2 wins. So let's talk about that more. What can we do to get us to a point where we can demo from production? Let's talk about some of the things that we can do this next week to make that happen.
I think Jayla's point feeds right into that. That asking clarifying questions sooner is probably a big one for us, because we did end up, I think all of us, thinking that these last tickets were hard, and I think part of that was because we didn't ask clarifying questions like kind of right away that came up. We could have put them in Slack sooner.
How do you get to the point where, so sometimes before you ask the question, you need to know what to ask. So how do you get to that point quicker? So you have an understanding.
Because we didn't think about the accessibility thing until we left it to last, because we knew that's what we didn't know. You know what I mean? So that's when we realized we didn't know that. We should have brought that up. Yeah.
It's a difficult, it's like a skill in itself, I think, of asking the right question when. I'm still, learning to get better at that, especially like in a distributed remote environment. So it's just something you always have to work at, I think.
Are y'all kind of having discussions in the issue, in the actual card itself, or like as you're kind of looking at the thing and kind of like writing down like just the questions that come to mind or those kinds of things? Is that part of the process for y'all? Or?
No, not generally. I think that for the most part, we've been like on our first call, we'll start the discussion there, and it's only verbal, and there's never really like a trail of our notes or our thoughts.
I remember in the beginning we kind of did though, was like game plan of what to do or like to clarify what it was. But it's easier kind of to get on the call and say like, what do you think about it, and have that longer discussion in person rather than type it all out, because you might change it, but just leave a comment after, I guess.
I also wanted to comment on this, just for me personally, I think that like actually putting like a time slot on my calendar will help me kind of manage the time, because it's never on my calendar. I'm always like, oh, I'll get to it. And I do, but then it's like later in the week. But reserving like time on my calendar would help me immensely kind of be prepared to hopefully like push something or make a pull request by Friday.
When you say the thing on your calendar, are you talking about when you touch base with other people, or are you also thinking like putting something in your calendar just as like a placeholder for your own time?
Both. One of my colleagues on my new project taught me that trick, that if you schedule time with yourself, you're a little bit more productive. So scheduling time, saying like, this is when I'll sit down and do this, and committing to that would make it a little bit easier, especially with my new schedule.
Yeah, that's
nice.
A great tip. Yep. I could see, like with the sorting thing, here's what I could imagine as maybe a process for that, right? It's like you say, like, you kind of read through the AC and like, okay, I think I get it. And then like literally I kind of sketch, every web page starts as a little rectangle, right? And like start kind of drawing it out, like what is that going to actually look like? And if you kind of come up with what you think is going to be a good sort of representation of the AC sort of in the page, working back for like, well, what do I need to do in order to get to that? Sort of like, and then start kind of breaking it down, like maybe there's a bit of a almost a design process you need to go through, not like fancy design or whatever, but just kind of like, what elements are going to be on the page, how are they going to be grouped, like those, like that level of design. And maybe that sets you up to know, like, oh, actually, I don't know how I'm going to get that piece of data. Like, where does that come from? You can like kind of track that back.
That makes sense, especially when I thought of how the distinct lists were going to look. Because to be honest, I was like, do they all go in like different divs? That's not really clean. Mm-hmm. How do we do this? So like maybe like drawing it out beforehand would have been a little bit more helpful, mm-hmm. Clear.
Yeah, and if you also, another thing you can do, I mean, you can always go back and look at sort of the reference app and how it was done there, to see sort of like whether it's groupings or whether, like, I mean, in that app, it's kind of just one long list, and they just each have like a different state based on the amount of time until it's going to be purchased. So there are multiple ways to do it, and sometimes like going straight to like the first idea that you have about the solve means that you kind of foreclose on what other possibilities could be. So you could even say like, hey, we could do it this way or this way. What do other people think? Like, oh, I like it if it's a group, like if they're kind of grouped, by date or something, like kind of, I guess, we're a team, right? So you can like kind of draw on each other a little bit. If you're at all kind of struggling, kind of getting going on the thing, or making sure you understand what all the pieces of it are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like the idea too of the early on, like doing planning. Then y'all can share that, what you planned out, either like on your own or together with Radhika and I, and then we can get involved earlier to kind of like validate designs or answer questions. So I would encourage that, definitely. All right, so we're at 4:45. Does anyone have any last remarks they want to make about any of the stuff that we talked about? Do we want to create an action item? I feel like it's easy to talk about, what you can improve on and then not take action. So does anyone want to create any action items to change our behavior for the next coming 2 weeks?
Excellent question.
maybe when we're talking about our tickets here in the next 15 minutes, before we leave the room, we'll maybe schedule like a early in the week session of like an hour, and then maybe a later in the week session. Y'all probably already do that, but if you just put it on the calendar, like you said, it becomes like it has permanence, right? So maybe we'll do something like that, like on a Tuesday and then Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Is that a good idea?
Yes, I like that one.
Okay. And then I think if you like come out of the Tuesday meeting, you don't have to necessarily have any code written, but if you just have like a plan of attack, and then you share that in the channel, say, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Even if it's something simple like we're going to add a red background to the list items because we're going to do a lot of styling this week. So if you just say something like that, then everyone has like an idea what's coming. So if you like that idea,
yeah,
go for it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's break out into separate rooms. I'm going to jump off this call. I guess we need
Michael,
to first give,
check it out. Actually, I enabled the breakout room feature. We could actually use real big breakout rooms right here. So if you want, I know, right?
Nice.
So if you want to do that way I'll stay on the call, and if you have questions, you can still ping me. But I'll just I won't be in either of the room. But we would just need, we need to decide who's taking which ticket, and then which mentor is going to go with which pair.
Oh, the pairings. We need to look at the pairings. Did the bot
looks like
go
Rachel
off?
and Matthew and
there was no bot this week.
Oh man. Have to.
Rachel and Matthew, and then Haley and Haley.
You sound like me and me.
All right, those are the pairs. So we have, as a user, I want the welcome screen to look pretty, and as a user, I want the shopping list screen to look pretty. So,
is there any work? Is there any work from? Is there any refactoring that people want to do as well, or do we want to go straight to the styling? Not to throw a wrench in it.
I think it's a good opportunity to add the refactoring here if you have something like burning to get to, because the styling is just like I shouldn't say just CSS, but
another thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll mention in my pull request, but definitely refactoring the sorting and anything else that can kind of be extracted from the item list component, because it's gotten very long. Like even our estimate, we should maybe pull that out, because it's like 360 or something for something so simple.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rule about like component length, but my general rule of thumb is if it feels like it's too big, then it probably is too big. So if you feel like it's too big, then it's probably a good candidate to refactor.
Another thought about whether we even break off into separate rooms is that, this is probably the kind of thing where the two pairs need to coordinate very closely to come up with a single design direction and not a Franken app.
Yeah, and also I was thinking my first reaction looking at these cards was that the home screen is going to be a lot easier than the shopping list. Is that right? Does everyone kind of agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
So I didn't want one team to have like 5 minutes of work and another team have 5 hours of work. So we might split it up a little differently. And I think this is a super common thing to happen in the real world too. Like the people creating the cards don't, at the time, especially at the beginning of the project, you don't know this until way later. So if we want to split this work up a little different, I think that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Or even if one pair wants to do some refactoring of the item list component and the other pair gets started on some design stuff, and then maybe the groups come back together. I don't know.
Yep.
A lot of ways to slice it. Yeah, I feel like this part of the whole project needs to be refined a little bit for future cohorts. But
so let's do you want to create separate cards then, Andrew, for refactor work, and then maybe create? I think styling is like a big ball of work, and if we could like unravel that a bit to specific things, like updating the style of the list item, updating the style of like the preview description modal, or just the modal component. Like I think there's a lot of components in there right now, so we could like split it up, maybe even component by component, because how many components do we have now? 8, 10? Something like that?
Not sure. Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. I don't think it's even
5-ish, 5 or 6, depending
Okay.
on.
That's actually probably the sweet spot then. I think, do y'all want to like start this work? So if you want to do the refactor stuff early on, I think I encourage you to do that. But if you want to get the styling, maybe just pick a component and knowing that the item list might get refactored into like maybe three or 2 components. So if you want to start styling this week, then I would say pick up the styling ticket. And if you want to refactor the stuff, refactor the item list, then pick that one up. So who wants to pick up what?
Preference.
You said you don't have a preference?
I said, Haley, do you have a preference? No.
Nope.
I kind of want to do the refactoring.
Yeah, you seem to have some good ideas for it.
Yeah, and you're familiar with the code too, so.
Yeah, I just want to learn how to refactor a little bit better.
Yeah, that'd be a good learning. I'd also be curious kind of how it's going to be broken up, but I'll have to do some searching on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the other team gets to pick up some styling. I think starting off with like an individual component might be a good strategy. Although I feel like the item list doesn't it have like has like large chunk of the code, right? You could start on the add item form, I suppose, right? That probably won't run into the work of the refactor, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea because that's its own separate deal.
Yeah, definitely.
There's also another deal. There's an approach that the last cohort took, which was they identified a CSS framework that they then integrated, and that's a nice way to make a lot of progress fast.
Oh yeah, I was actually going to recommend one that I really like. Materialize is like a lightweight, really nice looking version of Bootstrap, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it makes styling, like especially like forms and stuff, they just look so nice right out of the box.
I second that.
Yeah. The downside is that you don't learn as much of you're not forced to learn the CSS yourself as much, but the upside is that you make a lot of progress really fast.
Right, yeah. Like we could totally make these buttons from scratch, but like, look how nice they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Exactly, right. Yeah, that's a cool one. The last group used semantic UI, but Bootstrap is probably the heaviest weight and kind of, I don't know, you don't see it used very much anymore.
Bootstrap is the most notorious. Is that link I shared the one that you were looking at?
Yeah, this is totally the Materialize that I was thinking of.
Okay. So are y'all happy with this? I know you haven't taken time to look, but I think it's a good idea if we want to go down the route of picking a framework to just pick one and go. Especially like given the like time constraints, but I do think it's a good idea to kind of lean on a CSS framework.
I'm fine with that. I designed one of my capstone projects with Materialize, and I liked using it. So
nice.
I'm fine either way.
Yeah, I've done a lot of Bootstrap, and so I'm curious of different libraries to utilize, and this is one I haven't touched. So eventually, we'll get to it.
It looks like this is very similar to Bootstrap in terms of how you use it. The difference is the presentation, but the like CSS classes look pretty similar.
Yeah, it's all very similar to Bootstrap and how you use it. And that this documentation here is super thorough, makes it really easy to use, I think.
Okay. So then the team that's going to be doing some styling, I think that just grab this, put it onto the site, and maybe start on the add item form.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Awesome. So before the end of the call, we have about 4 minutes. Just make sure that we don't have to do it right now, but just follow up with your teammate and make sure that you talk about kind of early in the week some of the work you want to do, and then that'll help set you up for later in the week. And maybe like schedule like a 1 hour meeting on Tuesday, 1 hour meeting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something like that.
And I would encourage you to take notes in your in the issue, in the comments there, because you may like say you're like for Jayla and Haley, like maybe like, oh, you discussed this thing and it made a lot of sense at the time, but if you didn't document it, you'd be like, what did we say again? Like what we're gonna pull what out into what type of component, so maybe if you just kind of document that stuff as soon as you have the conversation or as you're going or whatever, it's gonna make it easier to kind of follow up and kind of follow through with the specifics.
Absolutely.
One thing I was kind of gonna ask, Stacy mentioned like draft PRs and wikis. I don't know if there was already a plan for what was kind of going to be presented next week, the way we've done like Ally and things like that. If that like little block is open, I'd be interested in learning more about how to do those. Because besides like commenting on the issue itself, I don't really know how to do a draft PR, or I don't think I've ever even seen the wiki tab. So
okay, cool.
Just food for thought for the future. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
All right. Yeah.
I like the idea a lot of learning to like use the advanced features of GitHub. I think GitHub is just a super powerful tool, but you kind of stumble upon some of the features sometimes. So yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Cool. I'm just writing a note about that so we don't lose it. So, and if other people have ideas what they want that last learning module to be about too, I'll just make a little thread in the channel and we can brainstorm some stuff.
I can't believe you just said the last learning module. It's already happening.
I know, right? That
Yeah,
wild?
I can't believe it seems like it went by really fast.
Yeah.
It always does. It's so, I don't know. Anyway, and that last meeting is always so sad. I'm actually not even going to be here for the last meeting. I'm going to be up in Seattle with my sister. So I'm not going to get to say goodbye to you on your last call. So, but I'll be here next week. So.
Well, we're right up against the time. Is everyone good? Set up for like what to do next?
Yeah, Matthew and I are going to be doing issue 17 then.
Okay, awesome.
That's what it looks like, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Did you know about scheduling?
Awesome. I will. I guess we'll see y'all later. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Nice job. Thanks.
You
See you later.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.